Hey there, what is going on? How would you like to improve your content almost instantly? So maybe you're creating videos, maybe you're creating blog posts, maybe you're doing Facebook Lives consistently, whatever the piece of content you're creating, there's always a way to make it better so that your audience responds to it better, so you generate more leads, so you get more people who are asking you about what it is that you're doing, how they can work with you. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 4 copywriting strategies that you can utilize right now to make sure that your content stands out so that it is better and it attracts a better audience for you. So if you don't know me, my name is Jelena Ostrovska from JelenaOstrovska.com, and I show young entrepreneurs how to grow a profitable online business while creating a limitless lifestyle and having more fun. So the number one strategy, and actually before even getting to this, so there's a couple of things that you have to understand. I mean, copywriting may sound like a really complicated skill set, but I will say it's not that complicated. And believe me when I say this, because when I was first introduced to copywriting, like, I'm Russian, you can probably hear by the accent I'm not American, but I always believed that I can never learn copywriting. Like, it's just such a skill set that is kind of out of my reach. And I thought, if I'm Russian, I can't really tackle copywriting, I can't really, become better at it. Yet over time, I became really, I will say I became pretty decent copywriter, and I've been even told that, oh, Jelena, over the last 2 years, your copywriting skills have really improved. Like, your content is just like stellar. And I was like, oh, wow, even if you're not a native English speaker, you can still improve your copywriting skills. I just want to share with you a couple of like basics and a couple of fundamentals that you can utilize, even if you have never heard about copywriting, because I will say the way you write online, the way you create your content, copywriting is basically in direct correlation to your content, because whether the content is video, whether the content is audio, whether the content is written, usually any kind of written content, it does require you a little bit of copywriting. So number one strategy is you need to work on creating better headlines, okay? So just think about it. So whenever you send an email to your list, you have a subject line, it has to grab attention, it has to pique some curiosity, it has to make people want to open that email. And I mean, I've tested different kinds of headlines. I'll just give you a couple of examples. So sometimes when I mention numbers, like, 5 strategies to, XYZ to attract better prospects to your opportunity, or 5 strategies to promote your blog post. So like, things like that, they always pique curiosity, especially if you know what are the key problems your audience is experiencing. If I know that my audience is struggling with lead generation, I know they're going to be curious what it is that I'm talking about in that particular email. If I talk about leads, I know that they're struggling with how to get traffic to my website. So again, if I talk about traffic and I mention that in, maybe like in my headline, in my subject line, they're always going to open that email. Learn how to create better headlines. So number 2 is, and actually even like before I move on, one thing that I personally have learned, like, I've always been like Googling and trying to find different headlines and stuff like that. But I will say, like, you can go and learn from your competition, basically, from people within your niche, like how are they creating their headlines. So you can even look at, the title of this video, like what kind of headline that I've created for this particular video. So I will say it's a pretty decent headline. So especially if you have found this like somehow like, on YouTube or on Google or whatever. So it may have piqued your curiosity, like, how do I improve my content, like, through those like copywriting strategies, right? So learn from your competition. Another thing that you can do, look at magazines. Maybe you are into like fitness, maybe into health and wellness, maybe you're into makeup, maybe you are, I don't know, like a relationship coach. So you can even look at different headlines from magazines, because headlines probably have the best copywriters ever. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I see like a catchy title on a magazine, it kind of always, not necessarily right now, I don't really read magazines anymore, but when I used to, I was always made curious by those headlines and by those titles. I was like, I need to read it. Right now, I don't know, like, I just don't really read magazines unless it's like Success magazine or Entrepreneur magazine, things like that. I'm more of like a book person right now, to be honest. So, but yeah, like, create a better headline. So learn from your competition. Go to Google, look even at my website. I've had, some pretty, good headlines, I will say, because I've studied this for the last like 3 years. So your goal, and I will tell you this, like, one thing that I learned from my mentor, he told me, like, you need to spend 80% of your time on the headline and 20% of the time on your content. So if your Facebook Live has a crappy headline, nobody's going to watch it. So the content, the quality of the content doesn't really matter. The same thing applies to your email, the same thing applies to your blog posts, the same thing applies to your YouTube videos, the same thing applies to even your podcast if you run a podcast. So keep that in mind. Headlines make a hell of a difference. So number 2, create content on purpose. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times people just create content for the sakes of creating content. I feel like it's a bad strategy. It's not even a strategy at all. If you are creating a blog post or a podcast or a Facebook Live or whatever the content is, make sure you always have like a purpose. Like, what is it that you're going to be promoting in that particular piece of content? You always have to have that end goal in mind. If I do this video, what is it that I'm going to promote at the end? Like, if I write a blog post, what is it that I'm going to promote at the end? If I'm doing a podcast, if I'm doing even like, an interview, so what's the next step? Because like every single piece of content, like, there's always going to be the next step. So if somebody watches the video, like they're here, how can you move them here? From there, how can you move them higher and higher and higher by the ladder? So your goal is always to like, what's next? What's the next step? Because trust me, in marketing, there's always going to be the next step. So create content with a clear intention, with clear purpose. Number 3, this is a big one, okay? So like, I don't care, like you can create amazing content, you can create like amazing like statistics and all kinds of different things. Like, I don't know your niche, but stories always are going to grab anybody's attention. And I will tell you this, especially for videos, especially for Facebook Lives, especially for podcasts, because nobody really gives a damn about facts, about numbers, about statistics, unless you're like a super green personality. I am a green personality, but I will say I don't really remember all the statistics, but I do remember stories, and I can say the same thing about you. Like, even after you watch this video, you're probably the only thing that you will remember is the very first story that I shared in the very beginning of this video, where I said that I'm Russian yet I still learn copywriting. So you don't have to be like the native English speaker to learn copywriting skill sets. So that's kind of one thing that you may remember. So like, I always like incorporate stories somehow in your content, because people will always remember you for the stories that you share, not for the facts that you share. So keep that in mind. Even in your blog posts, like a lot of the times I do intend to share, it doesn't have to take like the whole piece of your content, because people don't really tune in to listen to stories, you know what I mean? Like, they tune into videos and content to learn something, but those stories is something that makes a really big difference in like shaping up the whole piece of content. So share stories, make them memorable, and your content is going to be just as memorable as those stories. And number 4 is always have a clear call to action. I can't stress this enough. There was one time when one of my mentors told me, he was like, well, if you just tell people in your YouTube videos that you ask them to subscribe to your channel, that's not a call to action. And I was like, how so? Like, it surely is a call to action. He said, no, your call to action should get people on your capture page. Your call to action should give people a way to get on your email list. And I was like, oh, okay, so I've been doing this all wrong. And then once I started doing that, once at the end of each video I started saying like, go to this website to grab my free training, for example, like my lead generation has doubled. And I was like, wow, like, one thing really makes a really huge difference. So whenever you're creating a Facebook Live or a YouTube video or a blog post, like, always make sure you give a call to action for you to generate leads, to build your email list, to make sure that people give you their contact information for an exchange of something for free. Something valuable, right? Especially if you forget to give that clear call to action, make a note of that. So a lot of the times when I do my Facebook Lives, I know that I'm going to forget about the call to action, and I still sometimes do, but what I have to do, like, I have a little like piece of paper with some notes, some preparation for the video, and then I put like specifically like, plus CTA, and I little like put the link that I have to give to people. So I mean, find what works best for you and just stick to that. But I will say, like, give a clear call to action so you build your email list, because once I started doing that, and once you start doing that, your lead generation is going to most likely double. Okay, so that's it. I really hope you enjoyed those copywriting strategies that are almost instantly going to improve your online content, whether that's video, audio, written piece of content. Feel free to share this video out if you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, like it if you're watching this on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more training videos just like this. I post them every single week, and for more training you can go over to JelenaOstrovska.com. I post articles every single week as well, and if you would like to get my free download on how I basically structure my daily routine, what I do on a daily basis to create success online, go over to JelenaOstrovska.com/download. I'll put the link below the video as well. So hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye.